Welcome back to GDT Tech Reviews. In this video we are going to do a detailed review and pick the top 5 best PC cases 2022. So let us get started and the review based on our studies and small research. If you have any personal suggestion, do let us know in the comment section. If you are for the first time, don't forget to subscribe and click on the bell icon for more videos. We will be also providing affiliates link to purchase from Amazon. Kindly use to for best offers and purchase from anywhere in the world. So let's get started. This chassis is made of steel and plastic and is painted black, inside and out. It measures 546 by 248 by 544 mm, LXWXH, and weighs just over 31 pounds, a slightly modified version of the industrial crossbar design featured on the master case H500 and H500P. The design is visually similar to Cougar's Panzer line of cases. The top panel is made up of a large, slightly tinted tempered glass panel. Directly under this panel is an area with mounting locations for 3 120mm or 140mm fans, or two 200mm fans. The revamped structured bar design features large ventilation holes running along both sides of the front and top panels with dual-layer black metal mesh, a coarse perforated metal, backed by fine metal screening material, embedded in the frame. These air intake vents provide a path for fresh air to be drawn into the chassis. The area between the top panel and the front panel is slanted at a 45 degrees angle. This area is home to 4 USB 3.0 and 1 USB 3.1 Type-C ports, headphone and microphone jacks, a hard drive activity LED and a reset and power button. The reset button can also be used to manually control RGB lighting functions. Note that if you plan on utilizing all 4 USB 3.0 ports, you will need a motherboard with dual 3.0 headers or a 20-pin splitter cable. Packed with premium features and top-notch thermal and acoustic performance, there are a number of reasons to choose the Cooler Master Case H500M. Its ability to accommodate a wide variety of system builds makes it easy to recommend to just about anyone, if they have the money. With so many companies vying for your hard-earned money, it seems like there isn't a brand out there that doesn't have a premium chassis packed with all the bells and whistles, including tempered glass panels, addressable RGB lighting, USB Type-C ports and water cooling options galore. The airflow in the name is no idle boast. In addition to incorporating that perforated front panel, Corsair also left large gaps on either side of this perforated section that permit additional inward ventilation. The top is also perforated and covered by a large magnetic dust filter, and the back of the case has ventilation holes cut in it from top to bottom. Altogether, this makes for a clear path of low resistance for air to pass straight through the case. Two 120mm Corsair air guide fans are pre-mounted, one front, one back, to push things along. The two sides of the chassis aren't quite as friendly in the airflow department. The right panel is a solid sheet of steel, and the left panel is tempered glass, without any cut-throughs for air to flow in or out on either side. This shouldn't hamper cooling much, however, due to the abundance of ventilation elsewhere in the front-to-back design. On the inside of the case, the perforations continue. Like many other modern chassis, the 4000D airflow is broken up into two main compartments. The upper compartment holds the motherboard, whereas the lower compartment is walled off behind a shroud that holds the power supply and has room for storage devices. Unlike on most rival cases, though, the metal sheet separating these two areas is covered in the same triangular perforation seen on the front of the case. This should help to keep the power supply relatively cool. In most such case designs, the supply gets isolated and has to fend for itself in terms of air through the bottom panel. This panel is rather bare by modern standards, with just one USB 3.0 Type-A port and one USB 3.1 Type-C port. The chassis measures in at a real estate heavy 27.3 x 12.1 x 27.3 LXWXH, which easily eclipses the 900D from years ago. The entire case, empty, weighs in at a hefty 65 pounds, making this thing a bit cumbersome to move around. Image. The exterior of the case is adorned by the smoke-tinted tempered glass panels. Where there isn't glass, on top, the two flanking panels, There are brushed aluminum details adding to the overall high-end vibe it exudes. The louvered top is raised from the chassis, allowing for air to exhaust, though perhaps not free-flowing. There is ample room in front for intake through its large dust filter. Dust filters are also found on the rear, top, and bottom, so airflow shouldn't be an issue. The chassis supports 8 fans up front, 13 in total, to get cool air in the chassis. The back panel has a total of 7 expansion slots for PC, 9 including the vertical GPU mounting space. Video card can be mounted either way. Towards the bottom is space for the 2 power supplies as well as a Mini-ITX sized motherboard. Both glass side panels use hinges at the back and open up for easier access. Sparing little expense, the front panel is loaded with modern options including 2 USB 3.1 Type-C ports, a rarity to have one today, and 4 USB 3.0 ports for a lot of USB storage options. Other buttons/ports include the power and reset buttons and 3.5mm jacks for headphone and microphone. Unique to the 1000E, the power button and all USB ports have RGB LED backlighting in them, lighting up that portion of the case. I don't recall seeing that in a chassis before. The front I/O panel, technically, on the top of the case, is surprisingly light, with few ports and the power button. You get a single 3.5mm audio jack here, along with 2 USB 3.1 Gen 1 Type-A ports and 1 USB 3.1 Gen 2 Type-C port. You'll need an up-to-date motherboard with a Type-C header to use the latter port, so check for that or plan to shop for an adapter or a PCI Express card with the header. To connect it straight to a motherboard without the header, you'd need an adapter turning a USB 3.0 19-pin header into a USB-C header, and that would limit the port to 5 gigabits per second speeds instead of 10 gigabits per second. The interior well of the system is a bit oversized, which means the case can take a standard ATX motherboard, or even an extended ATX, eATX, board. You might also notice the vertical PCI Express slots in front of the usual PC backplane. You can do a vertically mounted GPU in here, though like most such cases, the H710i doesn't include the hardware or GPU riser cable to make it happen. You'll have to source that yourself. Lian Li's LANCool 2 mesh performance comes with, you guessed it, a mesh front panel that is easy to remove by tugging it at the bottom. The front doesn't feature any fancy design elements aside from the Lian Li logo at the bottom, but if you were to install RGB fans in the front, or opt for the RGB variant, you would get a cool effect seeing the RGB lit fans through the mesh. This RGB variant costs the same $90 and comes with 3 RGB fans, but they'll be 120mm in size and you'll miss out on the fan controller and PWM control. A white RGB variant can also be had for $95. Both sides of the chassis have tempered glass panels, which is typically a controversial decision. We're not often fans of tempered glass on the cable side of a chassis as it reveals your handiwork, or lack thereof, but Lian Li has placed covers over the cables to hide all the mess. The glass panels both swivel out backwards like suicide doors, but to move them you'll first have to unlatch the PSU cover hatches. All 4 swiveling panels hold themselves closed firmly with magnets, so opening your system is dead simple. Once open, you can simply lift the glass panels out of their hinges to ease assembly or maintenance. To cool your system, Lian Li ships the performance variant of this case with one rear 120mm fan and 2 140mm spinners at the front intake. At this price, those are wildly lavish inclusions, especially if you consider that these are PWM fans and a 3-speed fan controller comes included, too. There is no filter at the front of the case, which will help airflow. This will generate more dust in the system, but that's a compromise you'll have to be willing to make for the performance benefits. Besides, the panels open extremely easily for cleaning. The PSU intake does get a fine mesh air filter that slides out the back, which is nice as the bottom would be much more difficult to access for regular cleaning. At the top of the chassis you can mount up to 2 140mm fans or a 240mm radiator, with the front supporting up to 280mm and 360mm radiators.